Ministry of Federal Affairs and Local Development. So they were the de jure authority, de facto authority with CBS, and then the whole process was headed by National Planning Commission. And the problem with Central Bureau of Statistics was they never had experience in this type of engineering survey. They had experience with socioeconomic survey, but they had not have experience with this type of engineering survey. So two factors were emerged, in this review. One factor was there was inconsistency, incongruency in terms of leadership, because the de jure, and I would like to reiterate again, de jure responsibility was with Ministry of Federal Affairs and Local Development, and de facto leadership with National Planning Commission and then Central Bureau of Statistics. This created confusion, actually. That is one. Second is inexperienced, Central Bureau of Statistics. That is second, caveat in this process. And two sections in the questionnaire. The questionnaire itself had two sections. One section was building damage assessment and socioeconomic survey. And we, considering time, I would be very short on this. The damage assessment survey, the survey design of questionnaire, there was also certain scope for further improvement. And I must have to mention that the information on socioeconomic survey was not used. Later on, NRA didn't use socioeconomic survey, but then why those data, that became data symmetry in a way, why we collected that information, that is not answered so far. So we have 3 survey phases, and one survey phase in 11 districts, that was census, and in Kathmandu Valley, 3 districts, we had mixed survey model. Census is verification model, and third stage, or less affected, 18 district, we had a verification model. So these 3 different types of modalities were implemented. That also says that there was some scope for further improvement in this type of survey. And the grievance handling, we received 635,973 cases. It means that the enormous amount of grievances, also some problem with the surveying. And next was beneficiary survey in Nepal and other countries practice. We reviewed that, and planning of housing reconstruction at local level. That is, we are trying to link whole this process with the local level planning. Next. And as I mentioned earlier, I will be very short on this. Who owned this survey? The ownership was the problem, because this jure, ownership was with Ministry of, I reiterated again, this de jure authority ownership was Ministry of Federal Affairs and Local Development, but de facto with CBS and National Planning Commission. So the ownership was the problem. Thank you very much. So the another, inappropriate agencies for implementing beneficiary survey, pitfalls in survey questionnaire, I mentioned earlier, post-disaster comprehensive survey, inappropriate, and post-disaster comprehensive survey. Actually, this type of survey had to take place earlier, before the real disaster takes place. That is the point we wanted to highlight. Immediately after that disaster, this type of comprehensive survey takes long time, which is not appropriate. Census and verification model, and I would like to go ahead. Please, next. So discussion conclusion. What are the conclusions? Housing database will be instrumental for developing disaster resilient housing stock, that is there. And database facilitates for delivering effective services. And database contributes towards relief operation and will simplify reconstruction initiative. So we are appreciative of database. As such, we are appreciative, but the process and then the survey, how it was conducted, there was some problem there. Next. And in terms of recommendation, MOFAGA as well as MOUD need to introduce housing database at the national level. If the housing database has to establish at the national level, the policymakers, everybody should know what type of houses we have. That has to be known. It has to be made mandatory. That is one recommendation. Another recommendation is that is the federal government arrangement. Now we are in the federal arrangement. Municipalities, rural municipalities have to endorse this very important initiative. That's why we indicated Kathmandu Mahanagarpalika, metropolitan city here. Next. So this is concludes my presentation. I would be happy to respond further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chandra. You had to run a little bit in order to finish your presentation on time. But anyway, you have done your job with the time allocated. Now I invite Engineer Sugandha Subedi to make his presentation. There are a lot of friends along with him in preparing this paper. So scientifically we call it Sugandha Suvedi et al. Is followed by many of his friends. And so I request Engineer Sugandha Suvedi to go ahead with this presentation. Please share the screen, the presentation.
Is the screen shared?
Yes.
Okay. Hello everyone, namaste. This is Sugandha Suvedi. The topic of our study is impact of government trans deadline in a housing reconstruction, a case study of Nepal. We are 4 authors, myself, Rajiv Khanal, and Gaurav Kumar Panthi and Animesh Rajbajasari. We all are the staffs of EHRP, Emergency Housing Reconstruction Project. A study done in 2017 following the experiences from Bihar and Gujarat earthquake shared that the reconstruction process requires flexibility in time. Similarly, another study by Sadiki et al. Shared that this housing reconstruction is a continuous process. Government of Nepal through National Planning Commission published PDNA and expected to complete the reconstruction in 5 years. After 2 years, the reconstruction rate was actually found slow. It was very slow. So a deadline was announced in 2017 July. The deadline stated that all the beneficiaries should receive their tranche in January 2018 and second tranche in January 2018 and third tranche by June 2018. A study done by Steinberg in 2007 says the compromises will be taken by the beneficiaries to complete the reconstruction in time. The objective of our study is to identify this effectiveness of the government trans deadline that was provided to increase the speed of reconstruction. We have also tried to identify the other impacts of the deadline. For the study, we have done our study in 2 stages. In the first stage, we have taken the data from 11 districts out of 14 mostly affected districts by the earthquake. The source of data is trans data. This is the trans data taken from CLPA Jhimali website. The sample number is 600,000 data. And this is a monthly data taken from CLPA Jhimali, and we have compiled 3 years data. And its monthly data is 3 years data, and it is from March 2017 to March 2020. In the second stage, we have taken the data from Gorkha and Sindhu Palchok. The source of this data is EHRP database. Around 95,000 data from Gorkha and Sindhu Palchok has been taken. And for the study, we have studied the trend of one room, the room size that were constructed, the structure types, and the loan information of the beneficiaries in 5 different durations. That means from January 2016 to September 2019. For the results of this first stage, let's go through the timeline from March 2017 to March 2020. We can see a green line that shows this is the percentage of the beneficiaries who have signed PA from 2017 to 2020. This blue line shows the beneficiaries who have received first tranche. This dark blue line shows the beneficiaries who have received second tranche, and this yellow line shows the beneficiaries who have received third tranche. And these triangular dots actually shows the months where the deadlines were kept. So from this graph, what we can study is the percentage of PA signed and first tranche remains unaffected, even though the deadlines were announced. If we see the percentage of the second tranche, what we can see it here is on July 2017, a deadline was announced, and the percentage of second tranche was 10%. But if we see in January 2018, it's already 30%, and in April 2018, it's already more than 50%, around 55%. And similar goes with the third chance. It is, if we see the deadline announcement on July 2017, it's almost 0% in July 2017. But if we see in June 2018, the first deadline month for third chance, it is already 30%, and in January 2019, it's already more than 50%. Let's check the monthly data for the second trans. What we can see is this red line, red bar graphs are actually the months of the deadline. So the months around the deadline are actually very highly populated with the beneficiaries who have received second trans. And similar goes with the third trans. The months near the deadline, the highest number of the beneficiaries have received third trans. Now let's go into the results of our second stage of our study. In this study, we have taken 95,000 beneficiaries data, where we can see after the deadline, the number of the construction has been like very high from July 2017 to March 2018. And similar is followed by the one-room houses. So this is the one-room house data. So this has been followed by one-room houses. But very interestingly, what we also found was immediately after the deadline, the percentage of the beneficiaries who constructed one room and who did not construct one room is the percentage who constructed one room is 25%. But if we see the data from 2019, it's already 33%. That means even after the deadline, along with the time, the people constructing one room was increasing. So let's check the data for the beneficiaries who constructed the small area houses. What we can see is the small area houses has been increasing with increase in time after the deadline was announced, but the areas of the large area houses has been actually decreasing with increase in time. Regarding the structure types, what we can see is the RCC houses were 20% just before the deadline was announced, but this percentage is actually decreasing after deadline is announced. But the preference of BMC is actually is increasing after the deadline was announced. Let's see the data for the loan. The average loan of the beneficiaries taken by loan of the beneficiaries is increasing with the deadline announcement. But when we see the interest rate of the beneficiaries, what we can see is the interest rate is actually even less, actually even high before the deadline, and it is less before after the deadline. So what we can conclude from this results is number of the beneficiaries receiving second and third trans has increased drastically. And this trans deadline has accelerated the reconstruction. People were highly motivated to start and receive the trans after the deadline was announced. And what we have also realized is after the fourth or fifth deadlines, the trust of the government trans deadline, trust towards the government trans deadline of the beneficiaries has declined. So most of the people are not actually trust the deadlines. Some of the other conclusions that we found were the preference of one room was slightly increased by the deadline. The house with smaller plinth area was slightly increased, but the larger plinth area was actually decreased. And RCC structure decreased and BMC structure increased. There is an increment in the mean loan amount, and the percentage of loan interest was actually not affected. So we would like to recommend the following recommendation. We'd like to put the following recommendations. The trans deadline were really effective to accelerate the reconstruction. But there were some minimum impacts identified. So some of the policies need to be brought to minimize these impacts.
Mr. Subediji, you have 2 minutes to conclude.
Thank you. Duration of the trans deadline must be longer than it was actually expected. Actually, it was provided to the beneficiaries. We would also like to suggest with there should be some breakdown of the deadline, like the deadline for the construction, the deadline for the inspection, and deadline for the trans. And once deadline is provided, we would also like to recommend that the deadline should not be extended. Otherwise, the people's trust towards the deadline will be declined. And there are some special people who need the special support, the different kind of support, who are not able to construct their houses by themselves. So for those kind of vulnerable people, the deadline should not be kept, and a different kind of policies should be provided to them. Thank you so much. If there are any suggestions or feedbacks or comments, kindly let me know.
Thank you, Sugandaji, for your nice presentation. Actually, time is so limited that it's very difficult to do some justice to the whole content of the presentation. It's very difficult, but you have made it. Thank you very much. Now I go forward. I go ahead with the third presentation. Engineer Sunil Adhikari. Are you there, Sunilji? Sunil Adhikari et al. He has also many friends with him. Yes, I can see now Sunil Adhikari. He will be the third presenters for today, this session. So I request Sunil Adhikari, please go ahead with your presentation, share the screen, and you have 10 minutes, and you will be given some kind of indication at the 8th minute. Please go ahead, the floor is yours. Sunilji.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we cannot see. My computer is something like.
Okay, I'm going to share the screen. So we start, sir.
Yes, please start.
Okay, good morning, everybody present. My name is Gary, and I'm going to present my research on analysis of owner-driven approach of construction after the history of the basic instrument. And of all and I start my presentation. I'd like to start magnitude that occurred in 2072 by SAC, which ended up with around 9,000 estimated injuries, and also
Sound is not clear.
destruction
Sound is not
of building structure.
Where is the problem?
So, sorry.
Sound is not clear. Can you please make maybe you can please start. There might be a certain echo. Yeah.
Sure, I have a certain problem with my.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead. Okay.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay, sir. Okay, good morning, everybody present. Yeah, okay. First of all, I'd like to. So I'm here at my background. As I said, that we had destruction about more than half recover from this physical damage. National Construction Authority was established, and using owner-driven reconstruction model, as shown on my screen, reconstruction models that owner-driven approach. There are three fundamental requirements: participatory process of decision making, adequate technical support, and adequate financial support. I'd like to draw attention of all members present out here in these three fundamental requirements. Good morning, everybody present out here in these requirements further. So, next slide here comes from statement while going through different is which I here as a problem statement. I have listed
Sunilji, can you show the screen also? Your screen is not showing.
all these.
Sunilji, can you show the screen, your presentation?
Sorry. Okay. Next. So I've been. Okay. Okay. So can we use screen, sir?
Share the screen. It's not seen.
Can you see, sir?
Go ahead. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I'd like to recall thoroughly. This was my title slide, and I talked about background, and then I talked about problem statement up here, and now I have reached on sorry, research question and objective. Considering those problem statements with some critical questions, the slow construction rate and consequent time extension saw some just irreliability on reconstruction approach. So I did my first question about the approach of National Reconstruction Authority, like has the fundamental requirements of owner-driven approach been fulfilled or not? And to answer that questions, I have formulated my objective to assess the fulfillment of fundamental requirements of owner-driven approach. Similarly, in order to check out whether beneficiaries are satisfied with the approach or not, I raised my second questions and formulated my objective accordingly. Methodology was quantitative research survey method on 5-point scale. The questionnaire survey was done on beneficiaries of the municipality, national construction officials, and non-governmental organizations out there. To achieve my first objective, questionnaire survey was done with all these three stakeholders. And to achieve my second objective, questionnaire survey with beneficiaries of the municipality. Continuing with my methodology, I took population size at 2,984. This is the population, or these are the beneficiaries who have already completed their housing reconstruction. And using Coastman's formula, I developed my sample size as 250. And similarly, the sample size for professionals, I took 16. These are the professionals working on reconstruction within the municipality. Now my next slide deals with data analysis and research portion. My data analysis was analyzed using IBM SPSS statistics version 25. So prior to assessment of fundamental requirements, the reliability of the data has to be checked using Cronbach's alpha as shown in the screen. Since the Cronbach's alpha is greater than 0.6, this validity, this data is valid and further interpretation could be done. So for next interpretation was here using the independent sample details. Compare mean using independent sample details, perception of beneficiaries as well as professionals on different all three fundamental requirements are noted out there. First of all, Leibniz test was done, encircled with this red mark. Since the p-value is greater than 0.05 on Leibniz test, we can further interpret data from t-test of equal this t-test value of means. So for the first case, participated process of decision making, since the significant p-value is less than 0.05, the hypothesis is rejected. Thus, mean 4.24 suggests that beneficiary is active about participatory process of decision making, while mean 3.52 suggests professional perception in between neither agree and not disagree. These two mean differ or they two apart from each other. Similarly, in second case, the adequate technical support also, same case arises here. The significant value is less than 0.05. So the perception of beneficiaries and professional also diverge in different directions. In case of adequate financial support,